Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Hunting Stories Podcast. I'm your host, Michael, and we got a great one for you today. Today, we hear a couple stories from Guy Duplantier. Guy is the host of Western Contours Podcast, if you're not familiar with him. He's a great hunter, great human being, and a great storyteller, despite himself keep saying that he isn't. That being said, I'm going to just jump right into this thing. We're going to let Guy tell you some stories. He's got two specifically for us. One, Catalina Island in California, which is super cool and unique. And then the other one about an experience that he had that, honestly, I didn't even think this, didn't even cross my mind that this would ever happen to anyone. So, Guy, thank you for sharing with us. Now, as always, let's let Guy go ahead and tell you his stories. All right, Guy. Welcome to the Hunting Stories Podcast, sir. How you doing?
Good, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, man. It's an honor.
Dude, I told you before the episode, and I say this every time, but I always start my episodes with, I told you before the episode. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of what you do, man. You're part of a group of podcasters that got me going and got me excited. And I loved hearing you tell your stories as the season goes by, because you're kind of in and out of the woods throughout the season. And you always got some news to tell us, and you're obviously a natural storyteller, so I'm excited to have you on the podcast, man.
I appreciate it, brother, but I don't know how natural I am, especially when I'm out of the element. I really enjoy sharing the struggle part of it, right? That's kind of what makes us, in my opinion, as hunters, is those hardships on the mountain. And then there's times where I feel like we don't share enough of that human side of it. So that, it's really important to me to share those bits and pieces as I can, I
agree. I agree.
So yeah, no,
I'm not good enough to have too many successes, so I have to share my struggles. Otherwise,
I don't know that. Share. Well, that's the problem, right? Is the highlight reels make us think that everybody's good enough to share all the successes, right? But what comes along the path before those is a ton of freaking failure, bro. And that's
that's so true. That is so true. So I have Casey McAllister on the episode right before this one. It's not released yet, but it will be when this one comes out. And he was telling me that the hunts that we remember typically are the ones where there's failure or there's something funny, but it doesn't usually involve a success. Those are the stories that really stick with us. Mm-hmm. And then I was thinking, as you said that, I've had multiple people comment on my podcast as far as reviews and things, saying, I love hearing these stories. I love hearing people not just dropping 400-inch bulls and giant whitetails and all this stuff. It's nice to stay away from the Snyders and the Haynes and these guys, which nothing against those guys, they're monsters. That's what I hope to be someday. Probably not, but I think the listeners really appreciate the real, right? The stories of, oops, that sucked.
Well, everybody can't be. I mean, you're talking about exceptional guys, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
Everybody's not going to be a Snyder and everybody's not going to be a Haynes. And for whatever reason, right? Maybe that's our own detriment and we don't, put that effort in. I don't know that Snyder puts in any effort. That dude has always been a killer, right? I mean, I remember seeing him way back when, and that dude was a killer. I think some guys just have an innate ability. Yeah. They're in tune with everything they need to be in tune with out there. So that dude is he's beyond exceptional.
Yeah, those guys are amazing. But I think that what we're doing here, telling our stories, for you, the above average hunter, and me, the below average hunter, sharing what we can, I think people appreciate that.
I wouldn't even say I'm average at best, bro. I just don't quit.
There's something to that. That's probably the biggest part of the equation. But let's do this real quick. Let's introduce you to the people that maybe don't already know Guy, and I'm gonna hopefully get this right, Duplantier.
That's close enough, my brother.
Oh,
that's pretty. I mean, that's pretty good to be pretty GD.
Okay. All right. Well, introduce yourself.
So, Guy Duplantier, Western slope of Colorado nowadays. Originally from the far west United States. I don't want to claim
the state that shall not be state. Or
well, there's a few of those. Hey, there's a few going on now, bro.
Basically, the whole coast now, right?
Yeah, it's bad. I digress. I fancy myself a hunter, man. I elk is my gig. I kill more mule deer than I kill elk. But I love everything about hunting. I love everything about, what we do, spending time outdoors. We kind of touched on the failure part of it. It's just what drives me. It's what made me. It's what makes me every time I hit the woods, man.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say besides that. You know, it's made me a better man, a better father, a better husband. I just love everything about it. You know, the trial,
That's
the
beautiful, man.
tribulation, spending time in God's country, and, you know, being able to talk to myself and work things out with myself. And the man upstairs is just nothing like it. Never experienced anything like it. Never will.
That's awesome. That's a beautiful background, man. I love it. But let's also tell the people a little bit about what you do. Like, I obviously know you from your podcast.
Yep.
So let's talk maybe a little bit about that. I know you're also maybe, I don't know if this is the right term, but kind of an adopted son of the Elk Bros. You're an elk coach
So
for the
yeah.
Elk Bro squad. So let's talk about that a little bit.
All right. So yeah, you know, me and Joe, I'm going to brag a little bit. So when Joe and the boys were, you know, thinking about podcasting, Joe was listening to me, which shocked the living bejesus out of me, man. I'm just a dude. And it kind of spawned from there, right? He reached out and, you know, we had some conversations. Joe and I recorded for my podcast right at the inception of Elk Bros. And then it just spawned a really, really good friendship, man. Me and Joe hit it off. It's like the brother I never knew I had. And he knows how passionate I am about elk and the effort that I put into it, and asked me to come on this year as a coach, and wasn't no way I was saying no.
No, you don't say no to Joe Julia. Yeah, he's
no, you do.
There's
character. Things you say no to. Yeah, ask Manano and Gilbert and the other mafia leader.
Yeah.
You know, and Luis, they'll tell you that there's an appropriate time to tell Joe Gillia no. That dude he's all throttle, bro, no break.
Yeah. I talked to Joe today just a little bit. He was reminding me of some things that I need to do on podcasting. The guy cares. That's what I'll say, is he's looking out for everybody in his circles. So he's a good dude.
Joe's an interesting cat, man, because if he has something that he thinks is going to help you, he's going to share it with you. And, you know, if you're doing something to your own detriment, he's going to share that with you too, right, wrong, or indifferent, you know, in your perspective in the moment. One of the best dudes I've ever known, you know, in my 48 years on this earth. He's just a genuine human being, man. What you see is what you get. And that's,
I believe it.
That's one of the reasons I couldn't say no to, you know, the opportunity and honor to go and, you know, be a part of that team and go down and, you know, coach some guys this season and spend time in camp with those boys. It was just freaking phenomenal, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm hoping, I know that like you guys, there's some the Hunt Wars stuff that they do. And then there's also people that can like actually like kind of pay for a coach. And I'm hoping if I'd go elk hunting this year, which the only reason I wouldn't is if I might be lining up a moose hunt this year. And so unless the moose hunt gets in the way, I'm thinking I might try and come down and get coached out by you boys, because I need a lot of help.
Okay. Like, I hear you on the moose thing, but elk always takes the priority. I don't care. It's wapiti or it's wapiti.
Yeah. Well,
everything else is secondary.
I believe it. I'll say that, except for one caveat, which I do have 2 little kids. So I've got I got a 3-year-old, almost 4, and a 1-year-old. So I've got they come first, and then elk hunting and whatever the wife gives me. So I'm hoping to get more and more time as they get a little bit older. But right now it's a big ask to say, hey, honey, would you watch these 2 little midgets here for 21 days? So,
the plus about elk season, man, is it really can be a family outing. I mean, you go up into one of these units that it's not terrible country, and you can set up a nice camp, and have a wall tent, man, and the whole family can enjoy it. And you can hunt in the morning and hunt in the evening, spend the day with the kids.
Yeah.
It really is something that you can get out and everybody can enjoy. My wife started going out with me 2 years ago, and she absolutely fell in love with it. And for 20 some odd years, I couldn't get her in the woods to save my life. And that first year I was at camp, and there was one rock we could stand on, literally this big, and you stand on this rock and you had service. It was the weirdest thing. And I texted her, I think I was out for like 12 or 13 days at that point. And I was like, hey, you want to come? And she's like, how the heck am I going to get there? I told her, find a flight, into Montrose. I'll leave the mountain, pick you up. We'll come back up. And man, it was the best 7 days on the mountain. And She's in it. She calls for me now. The following
Oh
year
yeah.
she was calling. Yeah, this year she could make it with our move, unfortunately. New gigs and whatnot. And um, but I mean, 100 yards behind the house, we're watching them walk down the hill, and she runs outside before me most times to get eyes on them. So it's pretty cool.
That is awesome, man. Have you seen the Pack 'em Out boys?
Yeah, it's my
Jeff.
boys, Jeff and Ephraim. That's my
Yeah,
boys,
but
man.
have you seen his the video where he takes his two 5-year-olds? They're 5-year-old at the time out, and they actually call in a bull.
Yeah,
You seen that video?
yeah,
That's amazing, man. It's amazing.
that's
I
it.
will. I do plan on taking them out. I just don't think my son yet has the patience.
They
So
never
just
do.
give him a yeah.
Well, see, but that, in my opinion, that's the problem, right? Is that we have an expectation of how they should behave instead of just understanding that we're exposing them to something on their terms and not ours, right?
Yeah.
So if I take my boy out, and sometimes it would last 6 hours, and sometimes it would last an hour and a half if I was lucky. But it was the fact that I was willing to put him first, and to this day, I mean, he's 20 years old, going to college, almost 20, going to college, doing his thing. But that's memories, man, and he appreciates the time. I think sometimes we force our kids into things, and we want them to see it through our eyes, and we don't let them determine what that adventure is for them, right?
Yeah.
So then they're out there trying to please us, and we're still on our mission to punch that tag, and we forget that's valuable time. And man, I'll tell you what, you don't have much of it with them, because it's a blink of an eye, and those times they're dwindled, they're gone. So
That's an
my
interesting
opinion
perspective. I
to it
like it.
is take 3 years old, 5 years old, take them. If it lasts you 45 minutes, you put the better foot forward, and you're starting to show them early what it is, and
Yeah.
then they'll understand it as they grow up. Just my opinion. People wait and think it's got to be perfect, and man, F a tag.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I think you just got my son hunting maybe a couple of years early.
Yeah.
So
And
thanks,
then the
Guy.
thing is so when my boy started going, we would drive down to Texas, and I think his first hunt, it was between 5 and 7. He was either 5 years old or 7 years
Okay.
old the first hunt, and found a property that didn't mind him hunting, and he had been on this little Henry 22 single shot since he was probably 4 years old. And we go pop 40, 50 rounds at the range on that little 22. And by the time he was able to go down to Texas, man, he was whacking deer left and right, dude.
Wow,
But
that's cool.
he appreciated it, right? I mean, I look back on those pictures. Matter of fact, I just saw those pictures the other day going through one of the boxes, and I was just like, man, I'm glad I did that when I did it. If not, I would have had to wait till he was 12 years old to have those experiences, right? I got 5, 6 years of extra experience in the outdoors doing what I love, and experiencing with him and introducing it to him early. So
Yeah, I like that. I was planning on taking my son out on an antelope hunt here pretty soon, because it's basically, you're driving around in the car looking for antelope, and then you make your stock. So I think that he could hang out in the truck with Dad, and Dad's hunting buddy. So I think that's where I was going to start, but I am moving to Texas, so maybe I'll get him in a blind and start shooting with him, because
the blind is harder, because now you're asking them to be quiet, be still, right? And little kids are restless, man. So I think the truck, that's a good idea.
That's true. Well, man, we got off topic, but that's all right. This is good stuff. This is stuff that I'm going to remember for a long time, Guy.
Heck yeah.
But let's jump into what we came here for. Let's hear some hunting stories. So I don't know if you have any in mind, but why don't you set the stage? Where are you? What are you hunting for? And we'll go from there.
I'm gonna tell a harsh one. My first elk hunt, 2018. So I've been hunting pigs and mule deer and blacktail and turkey. And I had friends that were like, man, you come out on this Colorado elk hunt, come out on this. And they were, primarily rifle hunting. And I love to rifle hunt mule deer. That's, love it. But my first love is archery. So I just put it off. I never, 6 years, I think it was, where they were asking me, and I just never did it. I applied for elk in Cali, and there it's a once in a lifetime gig, right? So you just apply, you don't get it. Okay. It's, it's mule deer and pigs this year, again. And I don't know really what flipped the switch, but I remember telling my wife, I'm going elk hunting. And I want to say that was probably January of 2018. I'm going elk hunting this year. So did a little homework, got on some forums, trying to figure out where I could go, how to get in. And initially it was either Oregon or Colorado. And I'm not sure how I came up with that. And I think that was just me asking people in forums where the easiest place was. And then I had started talking to this dude, and he said, look, man, cool that you're getting, your first elk hunt in. Why don't you apply to Wyoming with us? We got 4 guys. We got plenty of points. I didn't have any points anywhere for elk outside of California. And I was like, man, are you serious? And he goes, yeah, dude, you've been really respectful, in this forum, blah, 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 blah. And people ask, deer questions or whatever. And that's, I'll say it's my gig, air quotes. So I applied with him. I got lucky and I got in, and he was like, you're more than welcome to come hunt with us. And they were going guided, and I didn't feel right at the time spending that level of money to go on a guided hunt. So, I looked at it, considered it, told him I couldn't do it financially, and decided to figure out how to strike out on my own. I'm not sure if you know, Wyoming is a non-resident no-go if you're in a wilderness area. So it kind of doesn't limit you, but it limits you, right? So I had to figure out how I was going to hunt in these areas that weren't wilderness areas. And I didn't know diddly, dude. I think I was Elk 101 and Elk Nut app from call it January 1, 2018. That's the only information I had. And reading books and anything I could find, about elk. Struck out to Wyoming. That was I want to say September 21st, 2018. And I mean, you want to talk about pump, dude. I loaded the Jeep, packed, everything. Probably I packed way too much crap, right? I didn't know what I was doing.
I'm still figuring that out. Every time I go hunting, I'm like, why did I bring this shit?
Yeah, I mean,
truck's full and half the shit I never touch.
Yeah, I mean, I had the full base camp in the back of a Wrangler, just crammed in. Thank God it was 4-door. And kind of had the base camp thing, in mind. And man, I just set out for Wyoming, and 18 hours later, I hit Evanston, and I was going to hunt northeast of Evanston. I found an area. I liked the landscape. It looked like it was easy to get into. And I pull up to this little drive-in motel, and I walk in the lobby. And as soon as I walk in, there's this, I don't know, 9.5 foot mount of a grizz standing there. And I looked at that thing, and I was just like, God dang, that's a big old bear. And dude, grizzlies, I've dealt with cats my entire hunting career. Lions don't bother me. I could deal with them. I could deal with, black bear. I saw that grizzly mount, dude, and I was like, holy crap. And did my check-in or whatever, and I asked the lady, where'd that come from? And she goes, oh, it's about 35 minutes north of here. And I was like, wait a minute. I thought the grizzlies were way further north than what you're telling me. So I get on the map, and she kind of, I think it was about right here. And I'm like, oh, hell no. No, thank you. Right. I'm not messing with them. So it kind of thwarted my plans. I'm like, I'm being pretty chicken shit at this point. And I'm not going in grizz country by myself. Right. And I wasn't prepared with a firearm. I carry a little 40 cal, and I'm like, that ain't grizzly gun. So the next day, I just started looking at, pull up Onyx, and I'm going through the map, and I'm like, where the hell am I going to hunt? Because I'm staying away from that grizzly. And I didn't want to drive another 6-7 hours to get somewhere else. And, you look at that southwest portion of the state, and I mean, it's just checkerboard, BLM private. And was just having a hard time, man. And went into a little tavern there, and was just, shooting shit with somebody. And one of the guys, heard me talking the same story, and he goes, hey man, I just killed my elk, and my dad killed his elk. If you need some help, where are you looking? And I showed him. He goes, oh, I'll be happy to come with you. And I'm like, serious? And he's like, yeah, dude, I'll help you out. So that was cool. Struck out with bugs. That was the next day we met up, probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 a.m. at a Walmart. and then made about a 45-minute hour drive and got this little walk-in access and kind of scope out the area, set camp. And I mean, as soon as we're setting camp, dude, I mean, bulls are bugling, right? And I didn't realize how enamored I was with them already, right? I mean, you're talking, 8 months of just delving into them, no information prior to that, and just falling in love with the animal. And then just open the door, boots hit the ground, and hear bulls just bugling everywhere. It was just, I have that video still, dude, and I was literally just trembling like, this is unbelievable. Yeah. This is it.
As the mafia would say, the Vita Lacus, right?
Oh, dude, that's not a real word. Screw them guys,
I do know that's not a real word.
They embarrassed me with that damn word. I thought I was talking to some guys at work. Talking to some guys at work. They're like, tell us about hunting. So I'm a heavy civil superintendent. So I would bring, venison and whatnot and, barbecue for the guys, make them burgers. And, the guys want to hear the stories, the hunting stories, shameless pun or plug there. And I go, yeah, man, you get up there and you get the Vitalakis and they're like looking at me like, what the hell's that? What's the Vitalakis? And one of them goes, what's the Vitalakis? And I'm like, Vitalakis.
Everybody knows.
And then the foreman that was working for me, he goes, you think that's a Spanish word? And I was like, isn't it? He was like, never even heard that word. And I was like, what the hell? And I told Joe, and Joe told me, he said, man, that's a made up word. I'm like, you sons of bitches. It was the funniest thing. I was so embarrassed. But anywho, yeah, man. So I'm trembling. I'm like, dude, this is a go. And set up camp, but how it is. By the time you set up camp, 18-hour drive, driving around all day, it was like, all right, first thing in the morning, we're after them. We get to our little, walk-in point, and we walk in at dark, and sun's breaking, and bulls start bugling, and we set up, and I'm gonna say that bull was probably about 400 yards away when he started talking, and I mean, he's screaming at us, and it's just.
Were you calling to him, or was he just on his own?
He was on his own, but I started cow call, if you can call it cow calling to him. I'm mewing and then Bugs, he had never called for anybody. And then he's on an external and he's just buzzing away and calling. And this bull is just, you can hear him coming in. He's coming quick and he's on one. And it's 7:22. This bull is on top of us. When I first see him, he's like 57 yards away. And then the next second, he's 22 yards away and he's just staring at us. There's 3 little aspens and we're in the wide ass open. Bugs is standing 2 foot off my shoulder in front of me behind a tree like this, like there's a bull there. I just called the bull in for you. And the bull's looking, I mean, it was, knowing what I know now, it was so stupid, dude. It was like beginner's luck times infinity. Right. Like there's no reason that bull should have even, stood there for longer than 5 seconds. And, he comes in and he looks, doesn't see anything. And I mean, at this point, he's like 22 yards and he's still, and we're the wide open. Is
one aspen.
Yeah. And the bull's looking at us like, okay. And when he had come in, he kind of come in broadside. And as soon as his eyes got behind the aspen, dude, I just drew. And I held that bow back, man. I didn't have a shot. I held that bow back for somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 minutes, 2+ minutes. And the bull was at 22. He came into about 18. And then he finally kind of presented a shot in between 2 aspens, at 18 or so yards. And I just loosed the arrow, man. It pinwheeled him. He boogered off to my 3 o'clock and kind of was sitting at about 47 yards. I knocked another arrow and no shot, man. And I mean, you want to talk about, Vitalakis and respirations. In that video, you could just see my chest just boom, boom, just breathing like crazy. And it was just celebratory, right? Like he was smoked, bro. Just perfect shot. And
are you videoing yourself or is Bug?
Yeah, no, I was self-filming it. And perfect shot he gets. I don't have another shot. He finally goes, okay, something's not right. and then he just kind of hooks back and goes to my 1 o'clock. So he came in from, basically my 10 o'clock. Now he's leaving at my 1 o'clock. So we decided, give it a few, make sure he was out, and we'll go grab my arrow. And I don't know, 35, 40 minutes or so. And maybe that's double the time. You know how it goes when you're out there waiting.
Yeah.
And walk up, never found my arrow. We looked for my arrow, couldn't find it. So we just, started marking blood, and trail the blood, dude. Excellent blood trail. I mean, just dripping. Both sides were just pouring. And it was like, oh, this dude is dead, And we get, I don't know, we get about 70, 80 yards, and then it's just drip, drip, drip.
Oh, no.
Another 60 yards. Then you could see he stopped. He's bleeding from both sides, but it's just the blood pools on the sides are just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And we keep going. We're kind of split up, kind of gridding the area. And it was to the point where it was like, you were lucky to find a 1/4 inch splatter of blood. And right at the last little spot we found, he dropped down into this drainage. And at about 50, 60 yards down, it's just heavy, heavy willows. So I'm like, oh, this is going to be a pain in the butt, but I'm still of the mindset of I pinwheeled that animal, right?
Yeah.
Not tripping. Clean pass through, shooting an iron will. So I was pretty confident. And as we dropped down towards these willows, man, the blood dried up, and I'm like, okay, kind of high, maybe back of the lungs, downhill. It's, I'm not getting much blood. So we drop, and we're looking all through these willows, and I hear this just crazy, just guttural scream of a bull. So we back up and we look, and this dude's 7x8, dude. He was a 400+ bull. Easy. And he has about a baker dozen cows on the other side. And just screaming. And I'm like, oh my God. This bull he was a monster. So everything said that he's, my bull was not going to be over there messing with that bull, with what was going on. I don't know why. That's what, it told me. So we, instead of going 1 o'clock, we continued to go, down this drainage, start looking in around these willows. Nothing's really broke up for him to bolt through. Well, now we're in this drainage. We come down our ridge. There's a ridge across from us. The top of that ridge is 50 yards from private. And then now to my 9 o'clock. Yeah, to my 9 o'clock, maybe 200 yards, 250 yards, there's a private fence line. That's kind of running that entire south side of us. And we went up the ridge, dude, continue to look. We looked. That was 7:22. I shot him less an hour. It was 9:30, 10 o'clock at night before we kind of gave up the search for that night. Decided, call it, we'll get out of here, come back in the morning. And first thing the next morning, man, I didn't sleep a wink that night, dude. Like,
I bet, man. I bet.
First elk hunt, and I'm just beating myself up. Like, what did you do? And I had the video, and I watched the video over and over, put on the laptop. And it's like, man, it's a good shot. Yeah, it's a little high, a little further back than I was wanting. When I drew back, because I didn't have the shot, I had to step over a foot or so to my right side. And I'm making excuses right now, by the way. And, I'm anchored, and I'm still still on my pin, with my pin settled on the bull as I'm moving. And then as soon as I stop moving, I sent it. That's my excuse, folks. But even, watching the video over and over, you're talking 2 hours of us just examining the video just over and over. And it's like, it's still a good shot. That bull's going to die. So there was a little bit of hope in the situation. We get up the next morning, man, and pack out and get back into the area. We waited for light to come up, of course, and we didn't want to bump him, just in the chance that he was still up on his feet or able to move. So we waited for light, walk in, get back on where we had blood. And instead of going down and across, we kind of looped back around. I knew where we shot him at, We knew where he come from. I had everything marked. We marked all the blood on onyx. And I said, well, let's go opposite ridge. And what we ended up doing was just sitting on the opposite ridge and just listening. And we got a couple calls, and it's like, man, that kind of sounds like that bull. So we call. We had a couple bulls come in. It was like, not that one, not that one. There was one that come in, and he just didn't have any blood or anything on him. So it was like, man, I didn't know rack wise if that was him. But there was no blood, so we let him walk. And we're sitting there and we're eating, and we look up, and a couple magpies fly out of the opposite ridge where we were, where we had sent the shot. So I'm like, oh crap, man, let's get over there. So we boogered over. We dropped down and just kind of scooched to the south a bit, kind of in line with the magpies. And I started looking for blood. Bugs kind of looped along that fence line to the south and started walking up that. Well, then I come across a log and I look down and I'm like, oh crap. I mean, a splatter of blood, maybe ½ inch, right? He's going back uphill. And getting on my hands and knees, and I'm like, all right, I got blood. And I'm following it up. And he goes, I found the elk. And I was like, just sigh of relief, dude. I couldn't believe it. It was
I bet.
It was just like, oh, thank you, God, And dude, I book it up the hill, and I'm like, where you at? And he yells to me. And when I break the top and I see him, the look on his face wasn't good. I'm like, oh, damn, coyotes or bears got to him or something. And I get up to him, and he just shook his head and started pulling branches. And I'm looking, and there's a carcass laying there, totally stripped down, nothing left to it, totally stripped, dude. Horrible, horrible butcher job. I mean, the amount of meat that was left on that animal. And when I say he was under branches, cut branches. So we're looking around like, what in the hell, right? I'm like, well, let's figure out if this is even the bull. So, we grab the pelt, and we kind of pull the pelt over, and we roll them. And man, the bottom side was pretty much all meat still. The quarters were gone. But I'm like, dude, I grabbed one of my broadheads out, found the hole, and I'm like, this is it. So the bull looped from where he came from. He did a big circle, dropped to the drainage. He went about mid slope and then started going back up. He basically went to where he was probably bedded when we first heard him, and he went and he died in that bed. So Bugs, I'm bummed, dude. I'm standing over him. I'm like, I'm damn near in tears, like just beat, man, just the most defeat I've ever felt in my life. And then Bugs goes, we got horse tracks. And I'm like, what? So we follow these horse tracks, and I have no idea how someone would have seen us. I mean, it's pretty thick aspen grove, kind of mixed. But 2 horse tracks walk up right along the fence line. They stop where that bull was. You can see the horses moving, just kind of back and forth in that area.
Yeah.
But yeah, the bull was pretty much poached out, man. And, nothing we could do about it. And I had the horrible decision to make whether or not I was going to stay and hunt and find another bull, which was well within, the right at that point. And or
a lot of money invested. It's a tough decision, man.
Oh, dude, it was a rough one, bro. And it took me, I think, about a day, and I just milled around camp and beat myself up and took pictures of deer and elk and beat myself up some more and shot the bow and beat myself up some more. And I was sitting, there's a little creek right there, and I was sitting there, and I was like, I'm done, like I'm done. That no matter if I'd have went and, if I could have got to that big 7x8, he was on private, by the way. So I couldn't. But I
assume that the poachers took the head as well, right? They took the antlers.
Oh, it was gone, dude. It was gone. If it was full of magpie crap or super decayed, or the the holes weren't exactly where we put it on, where I put it on that bull. And I mean, it was just brutal, man. Just a brutal experience. And I was sitting there and kind of recorded a little video, like, fuck this. And I made it was a tough call, right? Today, to this day, that was probably one of the hardest experiences and hardest decisions I've had to make as a hunter. Packed up when I made the decision, dude, I think I was packed in an hour. You know, it's like 4 hours to set up a camp, that elaborate, packed up in an hour, and I was out, dude. I was on the way home. And God dang, you want to talk about a long drive?
I bet. It's in your own head the whole time. That's brutal.
Yeah, because
did you
you're
call a
sitting
warden
there,
or anything like that? Did
what are you
you?
doing? What are you gonna do? You know what I mean?
I
Like
Yeah.
the hardest part for me was, as a hunter, I know what it takes to put an animal on the ground with archery equipment, right? And for somebody to go in and do that and take the rack, like I would almost understand just taking the meat and leaving the head, right? But you're going to take the rack.
Yeah.
That rack is going to sit on a barn or in a barn or on somebody's wall. It's like, what story are you going to tell about that? You're going to tell about we found a bull dead and we took him? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or are you going to, you know, it's like, what the hell? And that was part of it for me. It was kind of I was so disappointed that somebody would do that. I hadn't experienced anything like that, right? I mean, you hear that stuff, but it's, you know, one in 100,000 or something. And it was just, I didn't understand it. I to this day, I don't understand it. I get it to a point, however that sounds, but I didn't and don't understand how you could do that when you understand the effort that another guy or gal puts in to get out in the woods and do this. With archery equipment, with a muzzle loader, with a rifle, whatever it is, right? So it's just a brutal eye opener for what you're up against in the woods, man. But I look back on that situation now, and it's kind of what helped spawn my desire and passion to be that elk hunter, right? The kind of elk hunter that knows when that arrow is sent, that bull's 30 to 40 yards from death, right?
Yeah.
A clean kill. And I guess I took it for granted to a point, hunting pigs and deer. I ain't never missed, and I ain't never not recovered an animal and packed that animal out, or, you know, drug them to the truck if you know, if it presented itself that easy. And it was just like, it flipped a switch in me, man. It was like, okay, I'll go now. And I ain't looked back since. And I hate the situation. I hate that it happened. But in retrospect, I'm glad that it did, because I found something that's completely enamored me. Completely changed
your life, man.
It changed the way I view our pursuit in the woods, man. It made it more valuable to me, as odd as that may sound.
Let me ask you. So I know you said you shot at 7 p.m. Is that right?
7:22 a.m.
A.m. Okay, and you searched until 9 p.m. So you searched all damn day.
All day.
Do you think that those boys were there that night? Because I'm assuming they're the next morning at dark, right?
Yeah, we didn't go in until after sunup, because I didn't want to go in and have the chance of bumping that bull. So we did wait a little while, and we may have been in, you know, half an hour, 40 minutes before or right after sunrise.
Man.
So I
just have to imagine that those boys, whoever, you know, whatever, I'm just going to use the word, fucking assholes.
Yeah, there you go.
Saw you boys looking around, didn't make any effort, and just like, hey, if they come here, great. And then you guys turned around and they probably just cut it up that night and ran out.
That's kind of what so the next, when we went back looking, Bugs had brought his parents. He called his dad and said, hey, can you come help us? So his mom and dad came out and helped us. And then once we were able to find the carcass, that's, you know, his dad's been hunting there, and he goes, man, this, you know, they got this last night, was his opinion of it.
Yeah.
And you look at it and it was just like,
they covered it up. Like, what?
Yeah. Cut branches and covered it up, which is not an uncommon practice for folks to do, especially, like, you know, if they're hunting private land. I've seen it. Now public, I've never seen that, right? You do your deal with your carcass, and, you know, let Mother Nature take what you can't take and use.
Huh.
So it was kind of an odd thing, but, you know, seeing the two horses prints walking up to it along that fence line, and I mean, honestly, we could see where they came in and out. You know, we knew which property they came from, but what do? You know, you How do you
I
even
don't
call
know.
that? It was a rough
Yeah.
one, dude. It was a hard lesson, and it was interesting. Kind of an
But you
odd one
did
to
you
start
did
off
follow the
with.
horse tracks though, right? You did follow the
Oh
horse
yeah,
tracks right to the property line.
we followed them all. They were there. So right off of that 3-strand fence, there's I don't know, maybe it was about 250, 300 yards. Shit, you're asking me to remember 2018, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Just up the fence line, there's a clearing next to the fence that's probably 8-9 feet wide. Just walk right up to it. There's, you get up to that road, basically where the walk-in stops, and you couldn't get on that property with the walk-in, and they came right in and out of that gate there. So who knows, if they saw it or if it was a
Why you
bull
do
that,
that?
who knows? They may have been selling hunts on that property, and that was a bull that was frequenting that property, and dudes get pissed about that stuff, right? You're hunting that close to private. Some folks don't like it. It's just a sad truth about it, but just unfortunate, man. But like I say, in retrospect, it was probably one of the best experiences I had for the enlightenment that is a real thing, right? It does happen. Few and far between, I would hope, but it does happen. But it really, really spawned, my passion for elk, man, and just made me drive even harder.
Yeah.
It was
What I'll say,
downhill
man,
from
is
there.
I'll say that I'm a newer hunter, but even newer archery hunter. And like really the experience that I'm looking for is what you got. So I'm glad that you got to experience that. I mean, granted, we all want to come home with meat. And we definitely, and then past that, like having antlers, hell yeah. Like I'd
Yeah.
love to have that. So every time somebody sees those things, you can tell them this story.
Mhm.
But like really the experience of hunting is up to shooting that arrow, right? Well, that's not true. The pack out too, but we won't go there. Either way, that's cool. I think that, it's obviously a terrible thing that happened, and I can't believe that, another hunter would do that to you. But I think that you got that adrenaline, that moment of zen, right? When you put that elk down, when you knew you hit that shot. And I think that's what a lot of us are looking for. So I'm glad you at least got to that point,
Yeah.
on your first archery hunt, man. But that's a crazy story. I've never heard of anything like that.
Yeah, it was a trip, dude. It was I have that video on I don't spend much time on my YouTube, and the video's kind of crappy. It's fairly old, kind of first edit attempt, but it's on my YouTube, Western Contours. You could check it out.
Yeah.
The
I'll put a
fun
link in the show notes.
Yeah, the fun part about it is watching me breathe, and when I'm in that freaking 2-minute draw, it's funnier than crap to me to kind of look back on that and go, "Ooh, man, I was pumped up." But yeah,
That's awesome, man.
but it's kind of, like I said, man, that's what made my elk hunting journey what it is today. And I don't, as much as it sucks, I don't look back on it with any kind of despite or anything like that, and just for the record, those dudes weren't hunters. I'm gonna put that in there. I don't consider a jackass that'll do that a hunter.
Good point. That's a real good point.
It's
probably, so if it was coming from private, it's probably possible it's just like some hired hand that was like, oh look, there's some meat, let's go get some for ourselves. Somebody that
they didn't find it. Yeah. Who knows?
Well, that sucks, man. You got any fun stories or positive?
That one's a Debbie Downer, huh?
I mean, it's a great story because it like inspired you to be who you are. But you got what else you got?
Catalina Island, bro. So you want to talk about the it's funny.
Catalina Wine Mixer. Let's go.
Yeah, man. So when did I first go to Catalina? Jeez.
What do you hunt on?
2018, dude. Yeah, that was
same year.
It was the same year. I got a call from CEO of the company I was working for. The president calls me and he goes, "Hey, you want to go hunt mule deer on Catalina?" And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "You want to hunt mule deer on Catalina?" I go, "Is that a fucking real question?" Hell yes, I want to hunt. So, Catalina Island sits about 26 miles off the California coast. Okay. And I think from end to end, west end to east end, is like 24 miles across.
Okay.
And for years, you could hunt Catalina on a OTC tag for years and years. Then it went draw. And then it went to, you have to go through the guide service who guides via the Catalina Island Conservancy. And it was like the Catalina Wine Mixer. Like if you didn't have, $5 to $7 grand to spend on a 3-day hunt, you weren't going.
So let me real quick. Is this like, it sounds to me like it's public land.
It's a public land. But the hunt is run through the conservancy. So,
okay. And do they have any idea how mule deer got onto an island 26 miles off the coast of California?
So they took, and if I get the number wrong, please forgive me. If I remember correctly, they took 13 mule deer from Angeles National Forest, and they took 3 from somewhere up the Central Coast, and they let them go. And the deer just did what they do. There's no natural predators of them, right? The only predator on the island would have been the Catalina Island fox, and it's probably the size of a chihuahua. So these things were just able to just run rampant on the island. They used to have goats, they used to have boar, they still have buffalo there.
No way. They have buffalo on Catalina Island?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
So back in the day, right, I wanted to go to Catalina. I wanted to hunt cat, and it was, I believe that was D15 hunt, and you just couldn't do it, right? You couldn't get on it. Everybody wants to hunt cat. And anyway, this opportunity came up, and it was just like back from Wyoming, and 2 weeks later I'm on Catalina Island, dude.
That's awesome. That's good karma, right? For putting in what you put in Wyoming.
And never looked at it that way. So phenomenal, right? I mean, you're sitting on, the top peak is like 2,700 feet, and you're surrounded by the Pacific Ocean. And I mean, amazing sunrise, amazing sunset. And there are freaking mule deer. I don't know if you can see behind me. Let me see. Let's see. That Euro is a cat buck.
Yeah.
I think. Let me see. There it is. I think that's a cat buck. That's definitely a Catalina Island buck. That's the last buck I shot there. I have a couple more that are with the taxidermist that I took off the island. So
you shot. You've been hunting Catalina a lot, then. So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So obviously this has something to do with the CEO. Like, what is his connection? How did he get this tag if it's so hard to get?
He didn't. So he had a friend of his, one of his best friends, Dennis. Shout out to Dennis, my boy. Wanted to take Jamie, and Jamie was like, I appreciate it. My wife would kill me, but I got a guy that you should take on this hunt. And I wasn't turning that down, bro.
No. Yeah.
So link up with Dennis, and Dennis owns a company, Concrete Coring, and he's one of our business partners in the industry. And linked up with Dennis, man, and we went out on this hunt. You take the boat over, met him on the island, and met Ben and his crew over there, which they're absolutely phenomenal. And I've never been on a guided hunt, and I'm like, this is going to be a strange one for me, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with guided hunts, but there's a perception. And we're talking, and he's sorry, well, this is your guide, and Tom's our guide, and me and Tom are shooting. And I'm like, look, dude, I ain't never been on a guided hunt. Can I kind of just do my thing? Like, I know how to handle my weapon. I know how to kill deer. And, as the day went on, he was like, yeah, I think we're good with that, man. Especially after our range time. And man, Catalina, the caliber of deer on that little island is just unbelievable. And I mean, you're pretty much road hunting, right? You're getting out.
Yeah.
And it's craggy, dude, and it's super steep. I mean, it's treacherous country. It's some of the hardest country I've hunted in, bar none.
Are there more questions? Because I have literally no idea, but like, are there roads around Cat? You said you're basically road hunting.
Oh, dude.
Are there actual roads all over the island?
Oh, they're all over. I mean, you're cutting, and thing with Catalina, like my grandma, when she was alive, when I was a kid, we'd go to Catalina a couple times a year and, do the, kind of day tourist thing. I grew up fishing and hunting around the island, free diving around the island.
Gotcha.
In my teen years, and it was just just a dream, backpack the island. I think I was probably 9 or 10, backpack the island with my uncle. And then back then they had, boar on the island. So, you see wild boar, that stuff's been eradicated. By the time I'm there hunting mule deer, but it's one of those hunts where you can literally be selective, so we're driving around and I'm eagle-eyeing deer, and I'm like, oh, there's a buck, over there 1,300 yards away. We get up on them, shooter, no shooter. And they'll tell you like, nah, it's not a shooter, man. Hold off. You're here your first day. And you're talking, this is a 3-day hunt, right? So
yeah,
you're passing on good caliber animals on a 3-day hunt. It's a little bit counterintuitive to what I'm used to on public land, because public land, I'll shoot a dink if I only got 3 days, dude. And yeah, we get out, man, and there's that deer was probably one of the darkest, chocolatiest mule deer I've ever seen, and he was standing on this knob when I spotted him. And I mean, okay, you're driving, and it's like, oh, there's a buck. You get out and you get set up, and hopefully you got them. And they're pretty wired on that island for the most part. I mean, they don't, if the bucks see you, the does aren't, they're typically what a doe is. The towny bucks were monsters, and they would tolerate you, right? But you get into the back country of the island where people aren't allowed to go unless you work for the conservancy or something. That's
so the guides and the hunters, right?
Yeah,
you guys are allowed to. Okay.
Yeah, so we're in this back country of Catalina Island. It's kind of the middle of the island, and so you're basically going from the leeward side to the seaward side, kind of crossing the island, and we spot this buck, dude, and we're probably, I think we were at like 430 yards, and we're sitting pretty high up above him, probably 200 feet above him, and he's dogging a doe. And I didn't have shooting sticks. I had my Browning LRH, and it's a 26-inch barrel, dude. It's a heavy ass weapon. And I don't know why we didn't grab the sticks. And I'm trying to offhand this giant deer, right? And I'm like, okay, can I get prone? Can I sit up on a pack? And it's just cactus everywhere, dude. And finally get a spot. We found a stick, and I just rested on top of the stick above. We're in a cactus patch, and 430 yards away, 200 feet down, and I'm looking at this big giant buck just stand there, and he's kind of frontal to me. And Tom's going, shoot him. And I'm like, dude, I don't have a shot. Well, half of it was Vitalaki's, right? And I was like, dude, I don't have a shot. I'm not stable. I can't shoot. And he's like, you got to shoot him. I'm like, dude, I can't shoot him. And the doe comes out. Well, he started dogging the doe, and I finally got the beat on him. But he's moving, right? So as he moves, I move. The branch drops. So now I'm, grabbing my weapon. I'm pulling up again. I'm like, oh my God. And I go, you know what, dude, I'm done. And I don't know if that was the Wyoming thing talking to me. And I was like, no, I'm not taking the shot. Right. And he looks at me, and I go, dude, it's a marginal shot. I'm not taking a marginal shot. And he looked at me, and he goes, are you sure? And this is a stud island buck. And I go, yeah. And I just started walking away. And I could hear him behind me, racking, smacking. Little
Joe Pesci.
Yeah, he's just back behind me, just. And so we get back on, and I told Dennis, man, next one's yours. And Dennis goes, no, it's your first time here. You take the first shot. So I was like, all right, cool. So we get rolling up the hill, man. And I spot this buck, and he's probably, I think he was 373 yards. He's in this bush patch. He's bedded. He's laying by himself. And I'm like, there he is. And Tom goes, are you going to take that shot? Can you take that shot? He's doubtful now, right? Like, okay, yeah, you were good at the range. You talk all this shit, but you couldn't kill a deer at 400 yards. And I go, that's it, dude. And I just jump out, and I book down the hill, and go through this patch of oaks, and took the shooting sticks, and set up on the shooting sticks, man. And I put the bead on him, and Tom runs up, and he's like, man, that's a good buck. And I'm like, dude, he's dead. And he goes, is he? And I pulled the trigger right as he said it, dude. That buck reared up, and he just turned, and he fell. And Tom goes, I think he ran. I go, that fucking deer didn't run, dude. That deer is dead. And we start packing up the hill, man, and get up to that deer. And dude, it was like after Wyoming, and then after the doubt that I put on myself, with that first buck, it was nice to lay. It was a nice 3x4 island buck, dude. And they're not huge, body wise, but man, their racks get awesome. I don't know which one. I think he's still, he's at the taxidermist. But Catalina, dude, I mean, people don't get it when you talk about that island, but to get out there and to be in that setting, like I say, with the Pacific Ocean surrounding you on all sides, and I, like I told you before we hit the record button, to me, hunting, and hunting stories are a accumulation of experiences and moments in my life. And it was a real eye opener to be out on that island and kind of live in the dream that I had years before. It kind of died because it was like, oh, it's guided. I'm not going to spend, $5,000 on this hunt. And then here I am with this freaking, with this trophy of a island buck. Just like, this is unfreaking real, man. This is the best experience. And after that, dude, every October, mid-October, man, I was there with Dennis until this is the first year since 2018 that I didn't go. And man, this year was a really, really good year on that island with some of the bucks that I saw, on social and whatnot. When Ben and his guys at Wildlife West, if you guys are interested and listening, it's Wildlife West, Ben on Instagram. But they laid some beautiful animals down this year, man.
I gotta ask. So I know that you like archery is your passion, and you went in with a rifle. So is that just Catalina? Like, that's people pay money, so you're like, hey, I'm paying $5,000. I'm gonna put something down. Yeah. Or is that, or is like just people don't archery hunt, or what's the case there?
So Ben and I have had this conversation because over the years, I'm like, man, I want to archery hunt it. And last year he was like, yeah, you want to archery hunt it? Just, come on, buddy. What he always says is archery hunters are, they think they're a lot better than they actually are. And the island, again, the terrain is treacherous. It is rough terrain. So if you're not putting a good shot on, you have 3 days to get it done, so you don't have a ton of opportunity to get out and blow stalks and stuff like that. And then, you get into some of that steep country, you look at it and you're like, holy hell, I'm not going down there. I'm not shooting anything down that. I mean, you're talking, steep, cliffy, nasty, full of cactus. I mean, cactus patch after cactus patch. It's no joke hunting that island terrain wise. So it's primarily because most archery hunters aren't up to par with that island and the amount of time that they're going to have to put into, you just retrieving an animal that makes it down one of them holes.
Gotcha. Is 3 days a factor on the tag, or is that because of the guide? The guide's like, you got 3 days unless you wanted to do more than 3 days. Yeah.
So they run them. I think he added on a day too. I think it's 3.5. Well, excuse me, added on a half day. I think it's 3.5 now. But yeah, it's the tag is good for the season. So the way that they split it is you have basically your guided season. And then after the guided season, it goes into resident season. So folks that live on the island can hunt, and then they can have, you could be a guest hunter to a resident on the island.
Can you hunt buffalo? There's so many questions. No. Buffalo are just free roaming.
They're just free roaming. And then it's kind of unfortunate, when they put them on there, they try to control the birth rate, and the males were inoculated with something that was supposed to slow down their testosterone production, and it just basically shriveled their nuts up. So they're not reproducing naturally. But it's super cool to be around those animals. It's still a buff, right? I mean, excuse me, it's a bison. I don't want to get in trouble for saying buffalo. But
I went to the University of Colorado, so I'm all about buffaloes, man.
There you go. But yeah, they're you got your mule deer, you got your bison, buffalo, Catalina Island fox, and I think that's the only mammals kind of run around. I mean, field mice, small rodents and stuff like that, but that's it now.
There's always squirrels. making noise.
Dude, I don't think I ever saw a squirrel on that island.
Wow.
I can't remember seeing a squirrel on there. And they think that the island fox was brought over by natives that were using the island, however many, hundreds of years ago, that they were actually pets And it's a cool looking little fox, man. It's red, gray with, hints of brown and hints of black in them, but they're super. I mean, I don't know. The biggest one I saw may have 18 inches long and less the tail.
I'm gonna have to do some Googling after this
yeah, I'll do. They're really
cool. I got no knowledge about Catalina Island other than they have a wine mixer. Like, that's it.
Yeah, that was I actually think that's a real thing, but that's what like my buddies, they're like, oh, you're going on the Catalina Wine Mixer hunt, and I'm like, yeah, screw you guys. You're just jealous.
Yeah,
but
you come home with a nice mule deer every year.
Yeah, it is a phenomenal place to hunt, dude. It is. I mean, I'm going to liken it to my elk experiences, right? In terms of the revelations and then just the beauty that you're surrounded with when you're out there and it's a foggy morning and you're sitting on a cliff and looking straight down to the ocean and you're 2,000 foot above it and the waves are crashing on the cliff below you. I mean, you're just in awe of his majesty again, right? Of that creation. And it's like, I liken that to getting out into the flat tops and, running around and looking at, what do we have in the flat tops in 34? Like 200 lakes or something like that. It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
But the beauty of it and the majesty of it is just impeccable, man.
That's cool. Have you ever hunted Hawaii?
No, I want to do that. My buddy Armando, with the bow hitch, he went out, I think it was last year. No, year before.
Have you heard his story? He told it on our podcast, like episode 6.
Did he? Oh, dude, when I was texting back and forth with him when he was there, dude. And I think he might have told that, saying he cheated both of us. He told the same story on both podcasts. That's the problem with podcasts, though. It's the same 10 guys with the same 10 damn stories over and over.
Yeah, we only got 10 friends, right? But yeah, man, when he goes to the airport and he actually is a day early, like, man, Armando, man, that's Armando.
But yeah, my daughter, after college, she moved over there. She came home for a few months and then said, I'm moving to Hawaii, and she moved. And then she was trying to get the wife and I over. And I don't like flying. I don't like tropics. I like mountains.
Yeah.
And I told my wife, well, I'll go if I can hunt for 3 or 4 days. And then 2020 hit, and it just killed all my hopes and dreams of getting over there.
Yeah. I think I had a trip planned for Hawaii as well. Not for hunting, just to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking into hunting there at some point. I wanted to go for my 40th birthday, which is coming up in a few years, but my birthday's in April. And apparently the hunting's really more towards July. So it's like, they were like, well, we can maybe get you a buck. And I was like, that's not really what I'm looking for like a 40th birthday hunt. So,
well, yeah, maybe it's rough when you spend that kind of money, though.
Yeah. Well, they said they give me a buck, but he may or may not have antlers. They're maybe in velvet, maybe not, but they're not full grown at that point. So I was like, all right, I'll figure something else out.
Those suckers are supposed to be wiry. Yeah, they're wiry, man. That's what everybody says, and they're fast.
Yep. I've hunted them in Texas a couple times, and what I mean is I've sat in a place where they occasionally show up and never seen one. But someday, axis deer is real high on my list. I know that when I was hunting axis deer, the gentleman who was letting me hunt his land was just sitting at his house, and one walked by and he dropped it. So I've eaten axis deer. It's delicious. Like on par with elk. My wife actually prefers axis deer to elk. Yeah, and they're beautiful deer.
Oh yeah, they're cool.
But deer, man. He was just sitting there hanging out, waiting for me to come back at the end of the day and put a couple down.
there it is. Well, that's Texas for you, man. When we were going down, when I was taking my boy, we get the occasional exotic, and I was hunting on a friend's property, and he had 3,200 acres, man. They're like, I don't know, 4th, 5th, 6th generation ranchers. And the black bucks would come through the property every now and again. And you want to talk about a cool little animal. I never saw the axis, but those black bucks, dude, I love those things.
They are cool. Yeah. I have a buddy who has access to some pretty cool land, and he was hunting aoudad. And he was out there, I want to say late October, and he heard elk bugling. So they're out there too.
They're, dude,
and they're considered exotics.
I was gonna say, you go West Texas, yeah, there's some public land haunts that have them. They're holding, and it's open game all year round.
That's right.
I think the more people that hear about that, the less elk are going to be rearing their heads in Texas, though. You gotta be a crazy ass animal to find yourself loose in Texas.
Yeah, that's 100% true. All right, Guy. Well, dude, man, those are great stories. I don't know if I've had so many questions before. Usually I just listen and have my jaw drop, but I have so many questions about some very unique experiences, which you've given us plenty. Do you have any other stories you wanted to tell, or are we going to wrap it right
Man,
here?
I'm
It's
a
up to you, my
horrible
man.
storyteller, bro. I just, like I said,
disagree.
it's in aggregate for me, man. The thing that stands out for me in hunting stories are those moments where I can reconcile with myself, right? And
Yeah,
it's my opinion, right, that we don't focus enough on the human side of it, right? And it's cool to hear a guy's stories, but it's like, man, I want to hear the revelations, dude. I want to hear what you learned about you. And that's, I don't want to bore people with that, right? But like I said early
please
on,
do.
it's made me a better man, right? And sometimes it's to my detriment when I'm on the mountain, because it's like, oh damn, look at that. Can I climb it? You know what I mean? And it's like, you're supposed to be chasing elk, you idiot.
Yeah.
I I'll just throw this in there real quick. This past season, I was kind of struggling, and I don't know how long I had been out at this point. I spend the entire month of September on the mountain, for the most part, unless the wife wants me to come down, especially being here in Colorado now. And I'm out, and
Your anniversary is in the middle of September, isn't it?
it's in the beginning of September.
Didn't think that through.
I wasn't chasing elk at the time.
Yeah. My daughter's birthday is October 1st, and I was like, please don't come early, sweetheart. Please don't come early.
Yeah, because you even get that first rival season.
Yeah.
You miss it. You're lucky by a week. Actually, this year was the first year we were up chasing elk. We were in animals, and I looked at my neighbor went with me, and I'm like, dude, tomorrow's my anniversary. I'm going home. And he was like, huh? And I go, this is the first time in 5 years that I'm able to go spend my anniversary with my wife, right? Like, I have this opportunity. I ain't screwing this one up.
You got a good wife, man. You got a good wife.
And boogied down she's the best, dude. Boogied down the mountain and had our anniversary and spent a couple days at home and then went back up. But no, what I was going to say is I was out and I was kind of getting my butt kicked. I might've been out for 16, 17 days at this point, and getting my butt kicked, man. And, open season with muzzle loaders, dude. And over the counter unit. Oh, it was horrible. And I'm just trying to
I've told you, sorry to interrupt, man, but
no,
I'm relatively new to archery, like 3 seasons right now. And I've not yet overlapped with muzzle loaders because that's scary. I just don't know if I'm quite comfortable there. I'm wondering if they're going to change anything like that, man. It makes me nervous.
It should. From what I've seen the last 2 years, it should make you really, really freaking nervous. And that's the reason I was looking for another area. And I'm rolling around. I got the side by side. I'm on the flat tops, right? So it's eroded like crazy. And you really gotta try your damnedest to get away from the beaten path. And I found this, little hillside, and I look at it and I go, you know what? I don't know, but I'm going. And it was more about the climb than anything. I mean, you're talking like, I don't know, I think I was at 8,900, 87 or 8,900, and it went up to 11,400. And weather was crap. So I was kind of prepared for the weather, and kick my butt, man. 2.5 hours, I get to the top, and I'm like, woo, this is beautiful. Nothing but mule deer. And I said, I'm going to go drop. I'm going to go drop over this other side and kind of take it down and bust down in some elevation and see what I can get into in the trees here. And as I'm going across, my phone dings. For whatever reason, wasn't on vibrate. I'm like, oh, I got signal. And I call my wife, right? I'm like, oh, I'm calling mama. And I call
exactly
her.
What I do. As soon as I know I got reception, feel that buzz on the hip.
Yeah.
I got just, hey, darling, try to FaceTime with the kids, whatever. But yeah,
it wasn't that much signal. I called her and she's like, what do you need? I'm at work. And I was like, F you. And I hung up. I said, I love you. F you. And I hung up, and I was like, dang, that sucks. So I was like, oh, Joe, what are you doing, buddy? I just climbed up, 2,000 feet, looking for bulls, man. I'm getting my butt kicked. And I look over and I'm like, and I'm about to get swamped with weather right now. And there's this wall of water coming at me, dude. And I'm like, two and a half hours up this freaking mountainside, and I'm looking at this wall of water, and I'm like, holy crap, I'm about to get pounded. And sitting there, I was talking to Joe, and we're laughing, going, he's like, why the hell are you calling me? I'm like, dude, I needed somebody to call to brighten me up. I'm lonely. I'm talking to myself more than chasing bulls at this point. And I just climbed this freaking mountain. And right as we're talking, I'm like, bro, I gotta go. And the next, I don't know, 10, 20 seconds, dude. I mean, it's dumping. It is dumping. Yeah. So 2.5 hours up to get up there, have a 10-minute conversation and I love you, F you, hang up, and then turn around and come down. Soaking wet, man, to run back to camp. But it's just, I don't know, man. Like that kind of seems like a tangent, but it's just experiences, dude. Like, I think we need to hold on to them. You know, we kind of, as hunters, we live in an echo chamber. And then you get caught up in life and the rat race, whatever that looks like for the individual. And you're going, whether that's to provide for a family or to, you know, to pay the house note or that, you know, bitchin' truck you got. And we forget, man, that there's so much more to it. And then just the connection that we get out on the mountain with God, man, is just, it's a heaven sent, man. And I don't know that we pay enough attention to it. So like I said, just, you know, kind of a hell of a tangent from the story, but I just, you know, I feel it's important to say that, man. You know, we gotta stay grounded, and it's, you know, it's ingrained in us, you know. Well, not all of us, some of us are gatherers, but you know, that's something that we've had in our DNA for eons. My dog just busted in. Thanks, babe. You know, we've had it ingrained in us, man. And we don't live that experience enough because we're worried about notching that tag and how big the antlers are. So
yeah, I'm with you. I think that's exactly how I feel. I say it all the time. I'm not a very good hunter, but that doesn't mean that I don't have an amazing time every time I go out there.
Yeah, but what's a good hunter? That's my point. What's a good hunter?
Okay,
you know what I mean?
Great question. Yeah, I'm not I don't harvest often. That's what I'll say. I get out there and I put in the miles, and I don't care. Like, I'm just having a great time. This year. I think I mentioned it to you at some point, but I jacked up my back. I missed the entire elk season this year because I fell and compressed a disc in my back. But I'll tell you, the like 2.5 days that I was on the mountains was like the happiest I've been all year long. Mm-hmm. And I bring that home. Like, my wife goes, you know, before I love who you are. I love the man you are. But since you become a hunter, like, you come home with something extra. Yes. I don't know what it is. And like, I just have an extra passion for everything else around me. Yeah. Whether it's when I come home and I feel that and I push that upon my family, or whether it's, you know, the day after hunting season and I'm not, or whenever it is, and I'm building up for the next season. I'm making myself a better person because it's just such a great thing. I don't know what it is, but I think it falls in line with like what you're saying. And it's
you get to work out your shit, right? I mean, you get to take everything that, whatever that burden is, and you forget about it. It's like the factory reboot. You know what I mean? It's gone. All the garbage is gone. Now, some people may take it up with them and bring them back down. Then I apologize. And you're probably missing some of what is offered out there to us. Yeah.
And you know what? And I don't think it's exclusive to Western hunting. I've done some blind hunting and stuff like that. And I think it's often about the pushing yourself, but it's also about just like thinking, right? Having no one there. No phone, no TV, no other people, just like you and your thoughts is, and that's something that's it's not common, right, in today's society.
No. And then there's a part of being involved in the circle of life that even amplifies that more. Because I can go.
Absolutely. If only I could kill something, I'd agree with you. But
yeah, you're still involved in it, bro. You're not look seeing. You know what I mean? You're not a leaf keeper. But I think there's something about being involved in that circle and that pursuit, and that it amplifies it. But it also, for me, it's a reminder of how small and minuscule I am. So I have these big compounding problems, you know, 4 months out of the year. I don't even think of life that way anymore, right? But that's how I looked at it prior to it. And you have all this stuff that you feel like is heavy on your shoulder, and you get out there and you realize, like, I ain't shit. Neither are my problems. Like, I'm amplifying something that doesn't need to be amplified. this is what it's about right here. Being in nature, spending time when my wife goes out or my kids go out. It's just amazing, man. I've been trying to get my daughter out because I want her to experience that part. She'll kick most dudes' ass on the mountain. Like, she's hiked all the peaks in Hawaii. She went out, she by herself soloed those peaks.
That's cool.
She's a freaking stud. And that's what I keep trying to tell her. Like, get out there with me. You don't have to kill anything. Just come out and experience that. It's a different perspective on everything.
I agree.
Hey, where's 100%? It's your shed. I'm trying to train my pup to be a shed dog.
I want to get a dog. I don't have one now, but I told my wife I want a blood tracking or a shed hound. Like, that's all I'm looking for. I don't need a duck, bird, dog. I don't need any of that. Just find me some sheds.
This guy he has a pretty strong prey drive. He's American Bulldog. And he's taken a liking to some of the sheds around the house. So I'm like, okay. My wife loves sheds. I ain't really a shed hunter. My wife loves them, so he's going to be a shed dog by this spring.
There you go. Bulldog would be hard to get over some of that blow down, though, them little legs.
No, he's an American Bulldog, dude.
All right.
Yeah, he'll be about 115 pounds, stand probably 22, 23 inches. So they're not
nice.
They're not English Bulldogs.
Gotcha. Cool, guy. Well, man, this was fun. I appreciate you coming on, man. I think we got the point across tonight. This was a good one. This episode wasn't just about telling fun stories. This one felt good. So thank you, man.
Appreciate that, man.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I hope I didn't bore your listeners too much, man.
Yeah, I'm sure not. I'm sure you did not. But let's tell the people where they can find you. Tell them a little bit about your podcast. Anything else you maybe want to mention?
Yeah,
we'll wrap this shit up.
Cool. Western Contours. Listen to it just about any platform. I try my damnedest to not focus solely on elk, although I fail at that pretty bad most times. And I try not to live in our echo chamber. And I really want to have an impact on, outside of our demographic, but also showing the human side of hunting, as well as offering, the expert voices. So, it's kind of all over. It's primarily focused on Western hunting. But I'll talk to anybody I could have a good conversation with, like you, bro. But Western Contours on Instagram, Guy_Western Contours is kind of my personal Instagram. I'm lazy as hell lately on Instagram. I've been struggling with the whole social media thing with all this crap going on and how they kind of squelch our voice and everything. Also own Western fly covers, pack flies, vinyl harness flies, got some rain flies coming out, ponchos and scope covers and whatnot. So that's Western Fly Covers on Instagram, Western Fly Covers LLC, I believe it is on Instagram, and pretty much wherever podcasts are being delivered, I'm on. Carbon TV, signed with them in September, so I'm on the Carbon platform, which is a really cool platform for outdoor enthusiasts of all kind, be it fishermen or just hikers and hunters, and cool platform to be a part of. So happy to be there. But yeah, that's where I'm at, man. I appreciate the opportunity to get on and shoot the shit for a little bit.
Yeah, this was fun. I have one final request, and that is next year, like late October, when you do that podcast with Jermaine Hodge and you guys are just firing each other up, just let me be a fly on the wall. That's all I want.
Yeah, let's get it, man.
I can't remember enjoying like just the intro to a podcast more in my life than you and Jermaine. Just be like, "You ready? Are you ready?"
Yeah.
What? So, man, Guy, this is great, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All the stuff you just mentioned, I'm going to put notes, or I'm going to put a link to all of those things in the show notes so people can find that stuff. And yeah, man, I'm sure I'll see you around. And
absolutely,
I wouldn't be surprised if I have you back on sometime once you've made a few more stories for us.
Cool, bro. I appreciate the opportunity again. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Guy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, bud.
All right, guys, that's it. Another couple stories in the books. I want to thank Guy so much for jumping on the podcast. I had a lot of fun talking to him. He actually inspired me personally to get my son out into the woods sooner. And since I even actually got my nephew who had never been hunting out into the woods, which I'll tell you right now, it was difficult. That's all there is to it. Taking a 13-year-old on his first hunt, getting him to stop talking, quit dragging his feet, all those things. So I'm learning, and I'm going to introduce a couple young men in my life, and maybe even some young women if they're interested, to hunting. So Guy, thank you for that. But of course, thank you for telling your stories. And guys, get out there and follow Guy. Check out his podcast. Check him out on Instagram. I've put links to everything in the show notes. Everything you need to know is right there. And then beyond that, make sure you follow us on Instagram at huntingstories_official. Again, link in the show notes. And your homework, share this podcast with one other hunter, and hopefully they enjoy some good stories. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I do appreciate you. Guy, again, thank you. Now, guys, get out there and make some stories of your own. Thank you.